Brilliant. Okay, so once again, thank you for attending today. We're very lucky that we've got 5 excellent industry professionals here today to answer your questions. So if you would like to one by one introduce yourselves, that would be great. So if Scott would like to go first.
I'm Scott, Felt Branding Creative Director. We've been going for about 13 years. We're based in Cornwall. We've got an office in New York and one in London as well.
Brilliant, thank you. Ben?
Hiya, I'm Ben King. I'm Creative Director at an agency called Home, based in Bristol. We have a specialism in employee experience communications, so probably slightly different to some of the other agencies and professionals on here. So, but yeah, that's who I am.
Brilliant. Ross?
Hey, I'm Ross and I work at the Met Office, which is the home of weather and climate information. I am the content and social lead. And as you can tell, I work in-house, but currently not in-house, in my own house.
Amazing. And Phil?
Hi, everyone. I'm Phil, probably the youngest face here. Graduated in 2016 from Western, and I've been a digital designer and more recently a digital product designer at an agency called Potato for the last couple of years. I'm now no longer at Potato and on the lookout for new opportunities, but hopefully I've got a bit of experience to be able to reflect on and share.
Amazing, thank you. And Owen.
I'm Owen. I'm creative director of Upshot here in Plymouth. I know a couple of you guys from coming and doing some things with you already. So hi, nice to see you all.
Amazing, thank you. Okay, so students have been firing questions over the past 24 hours over to me. So I've taken the best of them. So I've got 6 questions that I'm going to read out. And hopefully you'll all be able to kind of try and answer it in some way. And then maybe leave it a bit open at the end for a general discussion. So the first question is from Harry. Have you found it more difficult communicating with clients recently with not being able to have face-to-face meetings? So if we go around the order we were going in before, Scott.
Not really. Most of our calls are remote anyway. So, and the reason that we moved to Cornwall was because people weren't coming into the office anymore. So, not really. We have had a couple of meetings where we've done, probably shouldn't have done, but we've done some social distancing. So, clients are quite keen to keep everything going, keep working. I think definitely get back, to some normality. So no, it's not really affected us in that way.
Okay, what about Ben?
No, I wouldn't say that the remote having to be remote has affected us. We have a lot of our clients are in North America and sort of stretch globally actually. So being in all those places is near on impossible, normally. So, so we're used to the conference calls, the calls like this. But I think everybody misses that face-to-face interaction. We certainly miss being able to go and see our North American clients a fair bit. So that, it isn't harming the situation having to do it this way, but we do long for the time we can get back to being face to face.
Yeah, thank you. Ross.
Well, our clients are our colleagues, my colleagues. So actually finding that I'm talking to everyone even more. I've got quite a visible role at the Met Office anyway when I am based in Exeter. But to be honest, it's made us all more accessible to each other. Certainly been good for the design studio in itself because we're having much more regular catch-ups and we're much more aware of people's situations and whether they need help on the job. And we're kind of collaborating more in a strange way in the fact that we're just trying to help each other out. So I don't think it's become more difficult. I think communicating with each other has become more difficult, and trying to be clear with each other. But communicating with clients has happened more and more.
Thanks, Ross. Phil?
Yeah, I can only echo what everyone else has said, particularly Ben and Scott. So Potato have had clients, well, particularly in North America as well, West and East Coast, and the UK. And we've been taking meetings remote for a long time. And particularly I've noticed in Bristol as well, just because we're just that little bit further away from, the big London clients or the US-based clients. It's kind of been happening for a while anyway. And actually, although just like Ross mentioned, it's, on the whole, it's just a little bit more difficult. And like Ben said, it's nothing beats face to face, which is a shame, but we can keep it going. It's not the end of the world.
Yeah, brilliant. And Owen?
Yeah, again, very similar. We've been doing a lot of remote conversations with London clients, American clients, and things as well. One thing that kind of on the opposite side of it is, do you other guys in the studios find that sometimes you're talking to your clients more and it's kind of getting like where you couldn't have had face-to-face meetings where you could have had them before, you might have just scheduled those in further apart, and now there's no real reason not to talk to them every day or every other day, and I find that can be a bit draining sometimes. Actually, you have even more contact with your clients, less time to get stuff done. I don't know if anyone else has identified with that at all, but it hasn't. The fact that we're down here in Plymouth, I think most of us don't take most of our work from the city that we're in anyway. So I think designers generally are pretty used to dealing with people on the phone, on videos, on Skype, or now Zoom, which I didn't know about until lockdown. And it's just, you just roll with it. I don't think that's the worst part of what's been going on, to be honest, at all.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Okay, interesting question from Torben. So, finding new work is tough. How do you go about it? And has it changed over the past few months, for good or bad?
Sorry, could you say that first bit again, man?
So, finding new work is tough.
Yeah.
How do you go about it? And has it changed over the past few months, for good or bad?
Finding work is always tough. But to be honest, we were trickling along. I think there was a bit of panic straight away, and then slowly clients wanted to keep things moving. So I think 4 jobs got put on hold, which was okay because when the furloughing came out, that meant that we knew we had that in the kind of in the back burner, and when things picked up, we could also pick up. We have been doing a lot of we've been looking for a lot of work, and we've been doing more charity work than we've ever done. So which is good, and it's quite good for the soul as well to do that type of work. So but I think that generally what happens after a recession is that our industry suffers a bit. But then when kind of new startups happen and people come up with new ideas, so a lot of people that have been in touch with us are people that are at home and have come up with ideas. So you just have to take a risk, I think, with some of the new clients that you take on board. So bizarrely enough, there's one lady that came to us and she's offered us a share in her company because she knew that she was going to go under. So we don't want to take a share in it, but instead we'll take, a cut for the first 3 years and see what happens, from there. So I think, it is tough, but I think there is, there is light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah. Ben.
Yeah. Yeah, finding new work is tough. I mean, just to say what Scott said there, it's always tough to get good work in. We've been fortunate in the industry that we work in that people haven't needed to communicate to their employees through this time. But there's been a lot of crisis comms gone on, so sort of the business as usual comms have sort of gone to the side a little. I think it's given us a great opportunity to actually give something back for free to our industry, to have conversations with potential new clients, new people we've never met before, who all work in our sort of same sector, without the sort of feel that it's sort of a hard sell going on. So I think that's sort of been allowed us to create new relationships and like I say, give something back that can help steer our sector. So I think it's been sort of fairly positive from that point of view. Obviously, we'd all love some more work in, but I think long term, it's there's always a place for creativity, and I don't think we should forget that. We are still going to need to do a lot of what we do already in the future, but it's just sort of surviving this next bit really, and we'll see the green shoots and we'll come out the other side.
Ross, this doesn't really apply to the Met Office.
No, but I suppose working in-house, I am lucky enough to not have those kind of pressures. But it's really important that I can recognise how to remain relevant. And I think that's the key thing here, actually. I think being able to adapt and be flexible with your skills is really, really important to be able to get new work and find new opportunities, particularly within an in-house team. So we've been having to adapt by creating more internal comms as a team. We've been doing less external facing stuff because we're part of government, and obviously it doesn't make sense that we would be conflicting with messages. So we've been doing a lot more internal stuff, and also recognising that people have been spinning up lives left, right and centre. So being able to turn on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter and go live. And as a creative team, we need to be able to know how to do that and stay on top of trends and technology. So we really consider ourselves content producers rather than just traditional designers. I think that's really, really important, particularly at times like this.
Great. Good answer. And Phil?
Yeah, I guess it kind of doesn't super apply to me either, but I can kind of draw upon recent experiences. And without going into too much detail, so Potato have closed their Bristol office due to, I think it was, things had happened pre-COVID, and I think the pandemic kind of exacerbated some problems we were having. We have found it difficult to find new work, but in hindsight, I think part of the reason for that was because we were quite picky about the sort of work we wanted to do, the clients that we wanted to work with, especially in Bristol. So actually maybe a year or so ago, we did break away from our London and San Francisco studios to be sort of more autonomous and kind of scout for our own work. And there was a real sense of, really finding purposeful product work in Bristol, partnering with clients who had a real kind of focus on sustainability and clean energy, for example. And it probably was a case of bad timing, I think. We really wanted to kind of get our foot in the door at the point where clients knew they had a problem that they wanted to solve, but they weren't at the point where they had an idea in their head and they really wanted to focus on solving the problem with the idea in their head. And we could kind of come in and work with them to sort of study the problem, study the target audiences, and figure out a way to come up with some sort of solution in a very lean format and kind of get sort of some early validation done. And I think possibly maybe the appetite wasn't there, possibly we were too picky. But unfortunately, that sort of led to that recent closure, which is a real shame. But I think without sounding too defeatist, that is the reality of the world, especially right now. But I have no doubt that, things will, return to some kind of normality. The grass will be greener. I think particularly in the digital space as well. So as a lot of companies are shifting more focus onto their digital platforms or digitizing a service that might have been more customer facing, for example. So lots of opportunities there that I'm sure Potato and other digital agencies can grab.
Brilliant. Thank you, Phil. Owen.
Yeah, I think to go back to the original question, getting work in, finding new work is hard. Yeah, it is. We've been so lucky in my business, but we only rebranded as Upshot last year, but we've been going for 10 years before that under a different name. And I've always found that work comes from relationships, doesn't come for us through any particular direct marketing or anything like that. And I recognise that that's not normal necessarily, and it doesn't give you the excuse not to be good at marketing. But in terms of this situation, existing relationships have kept us going. You know, those businesses still need to communicate, and they still need to, particularly now, respond to unusual circumstances and tell their customers what they're doing about it. And we found that certainly 2 of our bigger projects that have come in since lockdown started were literally to change the strategy of how they were operating. So one of them is a charity in London that deal with schools, and they go into schools and they do a lot of work in over 160 schools in London, Yorkshire and Wales. Suddenly, bam, there goes their whole model because schools are shut. So how do we creatively get back on the horse? And they, between them, came up with a version of their normal program that could be done remotely. And they brought us in to help put that material together and communicate it out online and social media and stuff. So that was like, the work came as a direct result of the situation. So we've been pretty lucky in a lot of ways. And we're also lucky because our overheads aren't huge, that we need to be constantly like working every hour of the day just to keep the lights on. So we already had a couple of jobs that were booked in that couldn't be cancelled. So, I mean, we've got away with it pretty lucky, really, I suppose. But yeah, I think it is about, like Ross said, just being able to recognise where you need to be flexible, offer your services differently, and make sure people know that you're there still, and that you can do something that actually they haven't thought of.
Yeah. Thank you, Owen. Okay, so next question. I think it's a really, really important one, especially for our graduating students this year. Obviously, we've had to move teaching online at the moment, so everything has been delivered online. Student submissions are now digital, so we can't take physical submissions. So everything the students are working on at the moment is in that kind of digital sphere. So what the concern is at the moment I think for a lot of our third years is to know what you guys are going to be looking for. So obviously the competition is going to be really tight at the moment in terms of getting jobs. Not everyone's going to be hiring potentially right now. So they're going to need to be that kind of cut above the rest. So the question from Lisa is, what would you now be looking for in a graduate portfolio? Would you be looking for anything or expecting different content because of the current situation? So go for Scott first.
It's a good question. I mean, I don't think that I'm necessarily looking for anything different, because I'm looking for good ideas and I'm trying to understand the personality of the person through the portfolio, you know, and trying to see what makes them tick. And if, you know, what's really helpful sometimes is if a student has focused on one type of thing that they really like. So whether it's, you know, typography or packaging or, you know, a discipline helps for them as well to decide where they want to go. But a lot of people don't know what they want to do, and they want to work in maybe multidisciplinary agencies. I think that as a piece of advice for hopefully I'm not jumping the gun because I often forget the question, but is to maybe make sure that your portfolio doesn't drag on too much, and it's it pulls those best bits at the front, so you get that person's attention. Interviews online are, and I don't know if anyone else has worked with freelancers, so because we've furloughed our staff, we've been working with freelancers. And that's been quite interesting because, you're talking to them and it's quite difficult, and they're sharing work and you're sharing screen. But the fact that maybe that first point when you have an interview online, that's that point when you can talk and see the person, and you have the human side of it. That's the really key bit, because we all employ people that we like and would like to work with. And then sometimes the work does come second, believe it or not. If someone that needs to fit in the studio. But yeah, I mean, what I was going to say was try and, if you want to be digital and get online, try and make sure you're on Behance, make sure you're on LinkedIn, make sure you're on Instagram. And if you've got this downtime, try and build a website. That's quite a key thing, I think. Or it could be a key thing. I don't think it's the end of the world. Does that answer the question, Amanda? Have I just gone off on one?
No, that's perfect.
Sorry.
Ben?
Yeah, I mean, I'd echo a lot of what Scott says there. In some respects, I'm still looking for great ideas and a good personality to come through from the individual. I don't think there's any replacement for good ideas when you're trying to hire someone. I guess when we're sharing work online, I think it's that need to make sure your own personality is coming across. I think, as Scott was saying, he hires a lot on personality, so do we. And that fit for us is really crucial, and I think it's just about making sure you can express yourself and your own individuality. I think even if you look at big agencies' websites currently, there's a lot that sort of merge into each other. You go to a work portfolio page on a big agency website, and quite often you could be at multiple different sites. Just the clients are different in the way it's sort of set out. So, yeah, just think about how you're presenting yourself and try and make it different in a positive way to the next person who's going to be presenting, because I think that key to get that individuality across is just a little bit harder in this sort of digital Zoom meeting age. That's me done.
Okay, it's to me. I don't need a prompt now. I'm beginning. I may forget next time round, but I got it. I think for me, I'm looking for social first thinking in a portfolio, without a doubt. So understanding what size graphics are going to work on Instagram versus Instagram stories versus Twitter, what will loop, what won't loop, making sure that I'm seeing stuff that works on a phone and works in a feed. That's pretty key. So for me as well, being able to animate, we're constantly looking for people that can make stuff move. So even if you're a traditional designer, there's nothing stopping you being able to animate something. It's incredibly easy. Even I can do it to a degree that's acceptable on social media. So don't be afraid to start dabbling with animation, even if it's simple stuff that you just change frames in Photoshop and use the animation tool within that. It's really simple, but making something move is really important. And then having some ideas and some experimentation in your portfolio is really important as well. So I talked about going live and how you would go live across all your various channels. Maybe have a brief that's actually, this is me tackling how I would go live and what that might look like and how that might look like on a feed and what software I might use and what my camera setup might be. That's really super current at the minute. And I don't think you can go wrong if you've got those kind of things in your folio at the second. That's me. I should.
Okay. Yeah, I think it's me. I guess I'm coming at this from a slightly different perspective. I'm actually kind of in the same boat as a lot of these graduates here, in that I'm also now looking, and I can only really draw on my experiences as well. But I think I can probably kind of give across some tips, I suppose. So, you know, this has always been a really highly competitive industry to get your foot in the door in. And, you know, I know it's gotten more competitive, if anything, now, but to some degree, I think we just need to be quite patient and give it a bit of time. The market needs to kind of come back. We need to kind of allow lockdown to lift for businesses to start reopening and, you know, that appetite to come back. Which probably doesn't sound like the best thing for me to say, but there are other tips I can give as well. So I think for me personally, what really worked and that's actually managed to get my foot in the door in the past is actually really putting a lot of effort into every part of an application for pretty much any role I've applied for. I've really put a lot of work into, you know, I've spent a whole day working on my cover letters before, and I've had interviews at places that have said they were so impressed by the cover letter alone that they invited me in for the interview. So that's already paid off. And then when it comes to a portfolio, again, just really kind of making that your baby, like Scott mentioned as well, looking into, you know, possibly creating your own websites, even if you could use something that's much more sort of based on a template, or I personally use Webflow, which I think is that real perfect balance between customization and not having to touch code. It's quite tricky, but I think this is a really great time to be learning some digital skills, especially in web design. And also Ross mentioned animation as well. And I'm also a believer in that making static things move really can bring them to life even if it's, you know, quite rudimentary. It just really can kind of boost your work that you're presenting. So there's a few things like for your portfolio there. I've had some chats with someone on LinkedIn who was offering out portfolio advice, and I came to her knowing that my current portfolio is not fit for purpose. And she said that, you know, I've got the strong visual chops, but the only thing that's missing here is just a little bit more of the process. And that might be possibly the thing that could make you stand out against other people. A lot of people do tend to show their final workings out, which might be fine as well, even just for a website. And if a recruiter's just kind of scanning through. But if you wanted to get to the stage, well, particularly if you're in the interview stage, or maybe your second or your third interview, where the hiring manager's sitting down with you and they're going through your portfolio in a bit more detail, it's really helpful, you know, to have either a password protected web page or a PDF, something that dives a bit deeper into your process, and you can kind of present those in a little bit more detail. And I think that's the stuff you're going to actually be doing day in, day out. While the really polished final product is really nice, the process is really what they're looking to see that you're capable of doing and doing well. So it's worth kind of focusing on that, particularly if you're lucky enough to get into those later interview stages. And then finally, on top of everything else, if you can nail all of that, I would absolutely agree that kind of showing off your personality and individuality by kind of maybe spinning up some sort of narrative or, you know, branding for yourself on top of everything that you've got already, just showing that little bit of personality in your work is that kind of cherry on the cake, I would say. I've definitely gone on.
No, great answers, honestly, great answers.
Me again?
Owen.
Yeah. Going last every time, I could just sit here and say ditto to everything. There's loads of qualities that I think I would always want to see in a person that I was interviewing. And just like Scott was saying, is sometimes the work, was it Scott or Ben that said sometimes the work takes a back seat to the personality and human that you're kind of talking to. There's loads of characteristics that I think you can then transfer from your personality into your work and your portfolio and how you present it. Being able to show your workings, what it does, you don't want to see a page of sketchbook doodles for every single thing, but what it does is show the way your brain works to maybe get to a point where you thought you were going in the right direction, then you maybe hit a brick wall and had to rethink something. Sometimes that's the stuff that I've found that graduates sometimes in their portfolio just show, I wanted to do this, and I just churned through and I did it. And in my job, often that's not realistic, and we have to present creative concepts, and sometimes they're not right, and then you have to maybe find a different way, and you have to address concerns from the client. So some way of showing that you're flexible, you've got thick skin, you can take a bit of advice and learn from it is really helpful. I think, the idea of building a website, if that's the thing you want to go into and you've never done it before, then definitely you need to be doing that. But whatever that learning experience is that this period of time where people are stuck at home, I want to see someone that's not sat and binged Netflix the whole time. I want them to have gone, how can I improve my old projects? How can I show my first year projects that I like the idea, but I never really had the skill set to complete to a high standard? How can I go back and make that better? And take into account that you don't want to see a portfolio of projects that are all there because that's what I've got. You want to see a portfolio of projects that, I've put this in because this, and it shows this about me, and it shows this about my skills. I want to see curiosity, empathy, all that sort of thing coming through. Someone that's not just going down. I've seen stuff I like on Behance, and I've tried to replicate a style. I just want to see, creative curiosity. Someone that's gone, I wonder if this would work. You could show something that's failed as long as you can show why you've learned from it. That's fine, but you have got that limited opportunity at first stage of interview. So. But a lot of the stuff that I would say is about personality, and the skills are given. You've got to have the skill to do it, and it's how you how you communicate your personality through what you present, which will be really important. And I'm sure I could go into a lot more detail on that, but probably not for right this minute. So that's probably me.
I think Owen made a really good point about trying to revisit your portfolio. It's the hardest thing for any student or graduate to do, to take criticism, because you're at that point in your career when you don't want to take criticism anymore. And what you did is I put a lot of effort into that. And I think when you go into industry, you start getting used to taking criticism, or people criticizing your work or saying you need to change that and move that. So I think it's important that you do try and revisit stuff, and also rather than just reproduce the same thing on a photo, an advert, an ad shell or a poster or something else, just try and extend it in a different way with ideas. Interestingly, someone else that I've been mentoring has started to learn Blender, which is like a 3D package. And I know when I left college, Plymouth, a long time ago, there was a big recession there. So I went back to college. And I'm not saying that those people that are struggling should go back to college, but I went back to college. And then I developed some more skills and learned InDesign. And then when I went out into the workplace, people were just grasping how to use it. And I ended up getting my first job at the BBC just because I was probably a nice person-ish, and I knew how to do InDesign.
And it wasn't just Quark.
No, it wasn't. Well, maybe even Quark, yeah. But people know what Quark is. So I think that, trying to get things like learning new tools that you maybe didn't have the time to at university, a good ammunition to go. And if people see that on the CV, or you've posted up something that you've done on your Instagram account, it's just, you've got to stay active. Don't hang in there, something.
Thank you.
Just to add on to that real quick, sorry, those were some great points there, and I feel like I've just got to quickly add on to that. That's absolutely, it's a difficult skill actually to seek out the criticism, especially in your own work and in your own portfolio. And I'm literally going through that right now. And part of being a good, so I'm coming biased from a UX design point of view, but part of being a good UX designer is actually, getting some positive feedback here, but really what we're interested in is the constructive criticism and figuring out where we can improve. And, it doesn't all have to be done in a big chunk, it can be iterative. But absolutely, this is a great time for us now to be looking back and reflecting on our work. I'm doing it, and working out.
I think what it does as well is helps to show the confidence, humility kind of ratio. Like, you've got to show confidence going into interviews. No one wants to see someone who's so cocky about what they're able to do that they're not going to be able to cope in the first week. When you go, what have you done there? I don't, someone that's coming and seeing this as an opportunity to learn is what you want to see. And if you can show that in your portfolio somehow, great. It's a good kind of step to take.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you, everyone. So the next question. So I know exactly how you're all going to answer for this one, but we've got some mature students within our group. And a question I've had is, do you think mature students would find it more difficult to find a job after this crisis? So, Scott.
I think no, actually, I've never really thought like that. I remember when I was at college, there were some older people and actually got jobs before anyone else. I think because they had matured a bit in certain ways. And so no, I don't think people should think like that. I think in our industry there's a general standard for pay. So you shouldn't. Those people, just because they're older, probably won't expect more money because they're older. So it's just I don't. I wouldn't worry. I don't think they should worry. I can't see why they would worry. It's like we've talked already. It's very much about the fit and the personality of the person, and no excuse, I'm afraid, is what I would say. Is that just? I don't know if that answers the question really.
That's great.
Yeah, I mean, to continue on from there, really is definitely about fitting personality, and any employer shouldn't be discriminating on age anyway, legally. But I think realistically, what someone who is a mature student, and I don't know quite the level of maturity of the students involved, but actually that people who've worked in different places, have different work experience, and come from different backgrounds. I think that really adds to what they can bring to a role anyway, particularly in the creative industries. It's just a more worldly, wider understandings can often be a real benefit. And having to be in a job, not going into your very, very, very first job and being a little bit more job savvy is a great thing anyway. So yeah, that's where I'd be.
Thanks, Ben.
Yeah, I agree. I don't know that I've got much to add. And for me, it's all about being current and age doesn't come into that at all.
Thank you. Oh.
Yeah, likewise. I think age is just another one of these things. We're trying to make this push for diversity and inclusion, and age shouldn't be left out of that at all. And like Ben mentioned, life experience, I think, if anything, will help boost your knowledge and your wisdom. So I think that's a really powerful thing to have. I think possibly, again, maybe to what Scott mentioned right at the start there, is that kind of, not seeking a difference in pay. That might be one of the sacrifices you might have to make to be able to work in this field to start with. Might almost sound a bit odd to be a junior designer as so mature, but I suppose that might be one of the only drawbacks. I think, I guess on another note, maybe just to slightly challenge the others is, I think at Potato, we almost did this like 180 turn when we were doing a round of hiring about 6 months ago, where we actually thought, well, we were grading people on, are they potato-y? Would they be a good fit in our studio? And then we I think we had a bit of an inward look, and we realized that, hiring someone to the degree on like being based on, are they a good fit, might be actually to our disadvantage in some ways. And, they might be bringing experience from a completely new area, a completely new sort of field of life, of their work, of their experiences that could really add to us. And actually we are being more diverse by having someone who might not be on the surface like a fit to kind of our current cohort. But I don't necessarily fully disagree with that either. I think, we've got to be a nice person inherently to join the crew.
Definitely. And Owen.
Ditto. I don't know. I can see why someone might worry, because there's going to be less design jobs. So everyone's worried, and everyone's going to sort of look inward and think, is there something that might stop me being at that top of that queue if that's reduced? I don't know. But like everyone said, it's about the person. If someone is worried about that, all they need to do is work harder to make sure that they're selling themselves based on what they are going to bring. And like a lot of people have said, a bit of experience elsewhere is never a bad thing, as long as they're willing to, again, keep that confidence, humility ratio in the right sort of zone. I took on a studio administrator last year, and I took on the more experienced one, not the graduate, because I just thought, you've got experience of different things, not necessarily specifically related to the job, but I just thought that would bring a lot more depth to their ability to do their job. And I think I think that the story is the same for a designer. As long as they are good, and as long as they are willing to, learn and adapt a bit and take criticism and grow, then I don't think age would come into it. Hopefully.
Thank you. 2 final questions. So I've combined one of these questions. So this is from Claire and Lisa. So during this time, everyone's been working from home. Do you think we will see a shift in the design industry where working from home becomes an option, that everyone becomes more widely accepted, such as designers who work 9 to 5 in an office currently?
Yeah, I think. Oh, is that? Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think there will be a shift. I mean, I can only speak for myself that, but it might be a trend across the board. But I think there's lots of good things that have come from out of this, apart from spending more time with your family. It's helped us reevaluate what's important to us and to our employees. Definitely working at home is probably going to be a bit normal, especially for just because of the situation. But even when that is resolved, I think we'll still take that on. working with, we've worked with freelancers and companies quite a lot that we don't necessarily go and see. So, worked with animators in Manchester and people in London, and you just, sometimes it doesn't work, but this has helped us to nail the weaknesses that we had with, when someone does something, I just don't get it, and you feel gutted, they've gone off on one. But we are having, so one of the freelancers is someone that was from Plymouth last year, graduate from Plymouth last year. And so we brief him in the morning and then catch up with him at about 2:00. And then if we feel the need, we'll have a catch up at the end of the day. So it's not, it's become quite good, because for us as employers, we were looking to move office from here in Cornwall to a bigger office in Truro. But I think what we're going to do is we're going to actually stay here and try and allow people to work from home a bit more. And maybe, so we do that already. We let one employee work from home on Fridays. But I think we'll probably do Monday and Fridays, because nobody wants to get up and go to work on a Monday. As long as people do the work. Yeah. So a bit of a waffly answer, but yeah, I think there'll be a shift. With regards to students and graduates, I don't rightly know how it would work, and I would love to hear from them of how they think it could work. So let's say if I wanted to offer a graduate a placement in this current climate, and I've got a couple of projects that have come in and I want some new blood, some energy to work on that, how would that work? What's the daily rate? What's the hourly rate? Those type of things would really help to start the ball rolling for people like us to use graduates. I think that would be good, because it is a risk for anyone to use a graduate. And if we're not there to look over their shoulder, so to speak, in the office, in the studio. So with how this might work with graduates, I'd be interested how that could work. That's me.
Yeah, thanks, Scott.
Yeah, I think in the question you mentioned about working 9 to 5, I'd be interested to know what designers do work 9 to 5. But the whole working from home shift, we've been put into this social experiment where, particularly as our studio, we didn't really want to we've never really wanted people to work at home. And we sort of fought a little bit against that, although we do have some. We do have some. Yeah, we do work we all work from home anyway. But I think it's that for us, it was about actually all being together as much as possible, and I felt that we sort of strongly felt that was the best way to learn, particularly when you have new people in, to set the culture, to set the expectation, and that sort of interaction with each other. I think will be going forward different tasks and different opportunities to where we can see now that it does work, and sort of be a bit broader with our working from home policy. But speaking to our whole creative team, we can't wait for the day where we can all get back into the same studio space together. I think that's where we are kind of happiest and create our best work. I mean, we're obviously doing great work as it is, but I think we just all want to get back there. And I think for a graduate, it'll be interesting to see how that sort of unfolds a little bit more if you were going into starting a new studio setting. I know from my experiences a very long time ago, just being around people as a graduate, you just kind of picked up stuff. You saw things over people's shoulders. You had those sort of ad hoc conversations when you're making the tea round or doing the shop run. It's those sort of little things is just you just absorb all of that. And I think with calls and FaceTime like this is fantastic, but it's all kind of quite set. you don't have those accidental conversations as much without sort of having to really sort of engineer it. So it'll be interesting, like Scott was saying, it'll be interesting to see how that goes forward. But yeah, I think overall, to answer the question, there is going to be definitely a shift in how we work.
Russ.
So we've actually just hired a placement over the last week. We had the opportunity to postpone or cancel that, but that seemed bonkers, absolutely bonkers. We have no idea how long we may have to work like this. We may have to work like this every 6 weeks. We might be put into lockdown. This could go on for years and years and years. This could be the new way that we do things. So to not think that we can work like this is crazy. We're creatives and we find opportunities with challenges. And I think that's exactly what we have been doing. So it's exciting, basically. And I do think that it will allow, if we return to anything like it was before, it will allow people much more flexibility, which is great for their kind of home and work balance, without a doubt. The real challenge is going to be if some people are in the office and some people are working from home. That becomes very difficult to keep everybody on the same page. It's good now. We're all at home, easy. We're all in the same boat. It becomes difficult once you've got a bit of a mix. And for us, with a placement coming on board over the next few months, the challenge for us is going to be how do we build up that rapport? How do we support them? How do we make sure that they're being developed? And make sure that they're getting what they want from us as well as what we want from them. And that's difficult to do without seeing them, I find, face to face. And they're some of the interpersonal skills, virtual interpersonal skills that we've got to start learning and getting better at. That's me.
Yeah, I think there'll be a shift, certainly. In hindsight, and looking back on it now, I think I was very lucky, and I'm actually going to miss this very much. But Potato were quite progressive in that they were very, very flexible in the way that they offered flexible working to its employees. We were able to work from home pretty much without really much notice at all. It's just one of those things in life. Boilers are going to break, and we're going to have to go to the dentist. And now, we're having to stay here under lockdown. And doing that and offering other benefits like unlimited holiday actually proved to. So for us, as employees, we actually felt more empowered and we felt more driven to really do a good job for Potato, because we were given those freedoms to work flexibly. And I can certainly kind of vouch for that. And I'd love to see that happening more, those freedoms be allowed more everywhere. But I think also everyone so far has hit on quite an important point of making sure that we do keep this sense of attachment to your agency, to your company, to each other, by kind of putting in some effort to bring people in person where possible, or do social things together remotely or in person, for example. So it's finding that balance, but if companies can pull it off, it can really pay off for them, and it did for us.
I'm going to kind of, I don't know. It's interesting hearing quite a lot of people saying, yeah, working from home is great. I find it a necessary evil, to be honest. And it's fine. We are creative. We're finding ways around it, but it's not the ideal. And if this had been the life that I'd gone into the industry in, I'd never have learned half so much, because I wouldn't have been in amongst other agencies, seeing how other creatives work firsthand, seeing how management of a studio works, seeing how other parts of an agency, different departments, different stages in the process work. I wouldn't have been sent out to get, this is showing my age, but I'm sure others will recognise the idea of a junior designer being sent out to Smith's to buy all the magazines so someone could do the research. Like all of the real, physical being there things that you have to do in a studio, the culture, the studio culture, I don't think it's there if everybody's disparate. So while I agree that we are creative, we find ways round, I would find it certainly second best to all being together, being able to talk to each other. If I've got my junior working on something, being able to walk behind him, see what he's doing, lean over shoulder, do it for him, or creative direct him, or whatever it would be. But we do that because we do things because there's humour. There's like moments that you experience together that help make you better at your job. So yeah, we can do it. We can do videos. We've developed working practices. We've used Trello better as a kind of way of managing our studio output. We've got different ways of using communications like Slack and Zoom and this sort of thing. Fine, we're getting by, but I can't wait till we're all back in the same place together, and we don't have the excuses of I didn't know what to do, so I didn't do it. There's a lot to be said for just being in the room with someone and saying, Owen, could you come and look at this? What do you think? Okay, I'll change it, rather than a whole protracted, can we find a time that suits you for a Zoom call and I'll share my screen with you and all that stuff. There might be a shift, there might be a more flexible approach, but I think a lot of agencies will still need to keep their identity and their culture by being in the same place together. So I don't think we're going to lose workplaces, and I would hope not. But I don't know if that was controversial, but that's kind of my take on it.
No, that's good. Yeah, great. Final question. So it's a question from Marcus. And it's obviously something that all our third years are worried about at the moment. So what are the current effects due to COVID on agency employment patterns? So is COVID likely to impact graduate applications? So all of our students that are due to graduate this year, obviously worried about getting jobs. Where do you feel that they stand at the moment?
Marcus, it's a good question. I can imagine that every single graduate, not just in graphics, is asking the same question. And I think every employer will sympathise with this. We're right behind you. I think that what could possibly happen, I mean, I don't know, is the right answer, because going back to Owen's remark about getting into the studio with younger people is really important, because you have to teach, you have to guide them and take them on. But in previous restrictions, and I've probably seen a few, I don't mean to say that arrogant, it's just I'm quite old, and I've seen a few and been made redundant and stuff like that. And what tends to happen is the big agencies, you might go from, so London, I remember I just got made redundant because of recession. And then at that point I went freelance, and I went into Landor, and when I went for my interview, there were 120 people in the building. And when I started work on the Monday, there were 40 people in the building. So, but what they did is they then got graduates in, although it might seem like slave labour, it's experience. You've got to take what you can take. And then they built up the companies like that. So I think you will have to work hard to get the work, and you might have to take a dirty job in design, but you need to take it, and then then move on from that and learn from that experience. The reason I mentioned about how graduates thought we might be able to take on graduates is because I think if there was a bit of transparency of how agencies could work with graduates, albeit online at the moment, and then getting them in the future, and how that fee thing is, because I think isn't there a minimum fee? It's like £256 to pay a graduate for a week or something like that. If I knew a bit more about that as an employer, I probably would contemplate taking on a graduate or taking on someone to work on a project for a bit. And that's what you need to do. The first year, most graduates, Amanda, you might be able to answer this, but most graduates within their first year are often doing placements. In general, previous years, so, in a year's time, if things are back and we're going into studios, then you'll be a little bit behind, yes, but that's the boat that we're all in, I think. Sorry to be blunt.
Thank you. Thanks, Scott.
Sorry, Amanda, can you just remind me what the question was in full again? I was listening away to Scott chat and I forgot what I was answering. Oh, and you'll need to be unmuted as well.
You're on mute, Amanda.
In a nutshell, is COVID going to have an impact on job prospects for our students? Do you feel?
Yeah, I mean, it has an impact upon everybody's job prospects at the moment. Unfortunately, that's the boat, like Scott was saying, that every graduate is in, and every employee who's been furloughed or been made redundant is in it at the moment. The economy isn't what it was, but it will recover. And if, like Scott was saying, you've got to take that, not the ideal job or the ideal placement. What can you learn from that, and what can you bring to your next job, or what can you bring to your next placement? And just go out there and get the experience. There's many of our best creatives, copywriters who have not followed the traditional route, even through university, to become the very best in their industry. There's plenty of people who've won D&AD pencils, if that's your thing, not coming from a traditional background, going straight in as a junior at 21. There's lots of other things you can learn along the way. And if you make the best of that, and you're really passionate about want to become a designer or a creative, you will get there. You just got to keep working at it and do the other stuff to get through, do your side projects, just keep yourself creatively alive. And you work hard enough, the opportunities will come.
Yeah, I'm going to echo that, but just in some slightly different words. I'm going to remix it. So definitely broaden your horizons, cast your net out further, go for things that you didn't even think that you might be interested in. Who'd have thought working in-house would be interesting, hey? I've been at the Met Office 10 years, and it's cool. Definitely keep creating, keep yourself alive. I think that's really good. And make connections. So if you're not on LinkedIn, get on LinkedIn and connect with everybody. You can connect to anybody and everybody, and you should be doing that, I believe. And don't sweat the small stuff I've written down. Like, it'll come. Don't sweat. Don't put pressure on yourself. It'll come. It's weird. These are weird times. Don't fret it. It'll work out.
Thanks, Russ.
I think everyone's put it so perfectly that I couldn't really explain it any better, to be honest. And I'll even take those words to heart myself. I've been made redundant recently, and that's twice now in 4 years. Those are the realities of working in the industry we work in. But if you're passionate enough and you work hard enough, you're self-disciplined enough to, keep trying, keep at it, cast that net wide, you will eventually get there. And if I can add anything on to what the others have said, it would probably be that actually there's a lot of people offering help right now for nothing in return. Take them up on those offers, do a little bit yourself, give back to the community a little bit in however you can. And I think that's one of the real great things about our community, is that we do offer support to each other through these weird times.
Yeah, again, hard to add too much more to it. Yes, the reality is that jobs in general will probably be harder to come by, but you just got to look at the positives, that actually, if people are looking to save money, then a graduate is a cheaper alternative to someone with more experience. So maybe you need to, catch that wave, take the opportunity, and just keep an eye out for those opportunities. And it's going to change the way people work a bit, but I think the opportunities will be there if you're good enough, you're passionate about about what you do enough, then it's going to be a challenge. So good luck.
Your mic, Amanda. Amanda, we cannot hear you.
There we go. There we go. Okay, so thank you. That's all the questions that we've had from our students. I just wanted to just open it up really quickly, just in the chat, just in case anybody's got any more questions that they wanted to ask. Really quickly.
There's got to be someone that's got something they've heard and they feed back on, surely.
Or take your mic off and ask the question. Hey, Harry, does anyone know of any good places to look for placements?
I did actually come across a website that was created. I think it might have been created by students. It was on LinkedIn, and it was for graduates that were putting offering themselves up for placements. So I don't know about agencies that are looking for placements, because I suspect that it's the structural thing. It's trying to how that people are trying to work out how to get their own employees back. So of an average company, let's say you've got say 80 people, you can probably guarantee there'll only be 10 people going back the first week to see how it's going to happen. So it's too early, I think. But that's why I think it would be good if there were any ideas about how you could take on placements elsewhere. I mean, I think there is a recruitment agency, isn't there, that Gabriella Skelton started up for students. So they're now branded as Gabrielle, but that's if you want to go to London. I'm not sure about Bristol. I don't know if Ben knows any on any other systems. But I know that a lot of putting pressure on you now, Amanda. A lot of universities are creating websites for their students. So the year that graduates in whatever. So today, Falmouth launched their year, and they do it, I think, every year, but they usually have it as an internal tool that when you go to the show, you can look people up. But now they've put that online, and I think that's a good tool.
Well, our third years are currently working on their site, and it's due to go live on the 1st of July. So these guys are actually producing their own website. So they were having their summer show in London. They were going to New Designers, and instead of that, now they're creating their own online showcase website. So that's going to be launched. So, and more information will be coming out to everyone in due course on that. Watch your space on that. There's also, the Ignite Festival that's in Plymouth. Have you ever heard of Ignite? So there's a festival in Plymouth called the Ignite Festival, and the guy that runs that is also starting a graduate website. Now that's going to be launched later in the year, but that's going to host University of Plymouth graduates' work and PCA students' work on it as well. So there are multiple platforms in the pipeline to showcase graduate work, but our guys are doing something unique to them as a cohort. So that's coming out on the 1st of July. I've put pressure on you now, guys, to get it up.
If any students want to try and start graduates want to try and start a company,
that's a great idea.
Probably, I don't mean that. I mean that seriously in some respects.
Yeah.
Probably going to be more funding for startups soon. So there will be kind of start-up cohort programs that give people funding and advice. And I think that they should keep an eye out for that. And that taxi studio in Bristol, I did the portfolio reviews for both of those guys. They came as a couple, and they were quite arrogant. And they said they'd be driving Audi TTs within a year, and they did. And I think that, sometimes you just have to have never done it before and look at them now. So I think you got nothing to lose. Go for it. Do it. Yeah.
Thank you. And Marcus has put a question up. So, in your experience, do agencies look unfavourably on applicants who might need to commute from further afield? Anyone like to pick up that?
I've been lucky in my experience both times. So I live in Weston-super-Mare, and my first role was in Bath, and they actually were quite good to me. They did say once a week, we'll let you work from home, as long as there's nothing massive in the pipeline going on. And then at Potato, we had real flexibility with remote working. So I've personally been lucky. And with our answers to one of the previous questions about companies opening up to flexible working more, probably will only be a good thing in that respect as well. But I think do be prepared to have to maybe, if you have to kind of wing your way through, I think it is a genuine concern. It's been a question asked of me before on interviews, how will you get to the studio? To answer that one and have to, make myself really sound as if I'm absolutely fine with the long commutes and things.
Thank you.
Yeah, I was going to say that if people aren't letting you work flexibly, maybe they're not the sort of people you want to work for. So maybe consider that. There should be no reason why you can't, and that they try and work with you to make the situation work. So at the Met Office, people live 2 hours away, some people more. In my own position, I live an hour away from work. When I took the job to start with, I thought I'd have to be in all the time. I think just go for it probably is the answer, and then work it out once you go and build that rapport and that relationship and understand the lay of the land. You take a load of preconceptions to a job and how it's going to be, and that you're going to be checking in and out with a little time card. But the reality is a lot different. It might be that it's worse than what you expected, but more often than not, things are better than what you expect.
Thank you. Any more?
No, I have a question. What is your you have been working during the lockdown. What is your level of digital fatigue? So you have already provided some elements of host response, but how did you manage that and clearly, digital fatigue? No digital fatigue. Okay. So maybe we move to Torben's question, Amanda. We cannot hear you, Amanda.
Mute.
I keep having my mic on.
Amanda's got digital fatigue.
I've got digital fatigue, yeah. So Torben, what's the best way to get our work in front of creative directors / big cheeses? Any big cheeses in the room?
They're all on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Go and find them. The best way to do it is by knowing who you want to contact, finding out who they are, and getting in front of them and building a bit of rapport with them. If you admire an agency and think that's the agency I'd love to work for, you don't expect them to look you up. You've got to go and find out who the person to contact is and contact them. That's the way to get in front of them. I don't think there's a real secret. I think it's difficult when you're in the bubble of university to think of how, if you're kind of gone straight from school to college to uni, you might not have experienced an awful lot of how like full-time work works. But I think if you can think outside your own kind of scenario, just think, right, I need to just get in touch with the people. It's so straightforward. Just find out and get in touch, find out who they are.
Yeah, I mean, you might be able to, like you said, Aaron, just get someone to, might say, oh, look, would you be able to review my portfolio? You don't have to always be going for a job. Don't try hard. If just to find the right fit, it's just like any relationship. So I think if you can try and ask those people. I had a really good, I know it was a while ago, but I had a guy that I gave a job to, and he travelled up. I was working in London. He travelled up to London from Somerset, and he'd arranged a couple of interviews. And what he did is 2 days before, he sent me an email saying, I'm in Clerkenwell for an interview at Design Bridge at 10 o'clock in the morning. Could I come and see you in the afternoon? Now, the fact that he had said that he'd gone into Design Bridge for an interview made me think, maybe I should see this guy. So you have to have a bit of cocky confidence, and you've got nothing to lose. And he was outside in a phone box before mobile phones. And you just try things, and tell a white lie, Now's the time to just feel a bit. And if you know someone that knows someone, that's how it's going to happen. That generally, And the people here today, they might not be able to offer you a job, but they might know someone that does need someone. So, that network thing is vital. Yeah.
I think speaking for employers as well, we've got to get better at speculatively seeing students, not for a job, just like Scott said. Being open to say, if a student's coming to you saying, can I show you my portfolio? Not saying, well, I haven't got a job to give you, so no. I don't know if you guys have read the Adrian Shaughnessy book, How to Be a Graphic Designer Without Losing Your Soul, but there's a good bit about it in that, where it talks about you've just got to get in front of people. It doesn't matter if there's a job, and creative directors need to see people and not worry that their juniors are going to be unsettled by seeing you interviewing all the time. Just think, that's the sort of, and in this day and age as well, it's going to be digital. It's going to be on Zoom at the minute anyway, or Google or whatever it will be. So yeah, we need to be able to be flexible enough to see people.
I'm going to have to ask, there's one more question from Lisa, and then we're going to have to end this discussion, I'm afraid, because we've got G.F. Smith coming to chat to our thirties at 3:30. 3:30. Really, really quickly, last question. What are your studio aspirations moving forward? Scott?
Well, it's probably like a lot of people. I mean, we were having our best year. I have to be honest. I've been doing this for a while, and like Owen just said about the Adrian Shaughnessy book, buy that book and read it, because it's a really good book. And I think I reread that book last year because I've been doing this for a while, and it grinds you down a bit. What was the question? I've gone off on one.
The question. What are your studio aspirations moving?
Yeah. World domination, and to just try and get back in there again. I mean, for me, I work with my wife as well, day in day out. I've got 3 kids and a dog, and I desperately want to work with other people because that's what gives me my lifeblood. That's what makes me interested in design. So for me, it's I just want to work with young people with lots of energy. That's the most important thing. It's not about making money. I'm also trying to work with clients that are human, and we put our heart and souls into everything we do, and then for sometimes, unfortunately, for other people, it's just tread on it like dirt and have nice like dirt. So work with nice people. That's my goal.
Great advice. Yeah.
I guess immediate aspirations is to discover what our new normal is going to be and to get comfortable with that and understand what that's going to be like, and obviously learn to adapt to those changes and hopefully embrace as much as we can of what we had previously. That would be my immediate aspiration, just to get back to, I said, being in the same room as the creative team and all the, the strategists and everyone else who goes around it. Being able to have face-to-face conversation, that would be my biggest aspiration at the moment, just to get some of that sort of human contact back and really keep that love for what we're doing, really. And as long as we can have a positive experience all around, I would say that was it.
Amazing. Thank you. I'm going to have to end it there, guys. Thank you. Thank you so much for attending today. It's really inspiring that you're giving up your time to help advise and support our students. So thank you. We really appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Lots of thanks coming up in the chat as well. Thank you. So thank you. I don't know whether we can all take our microphones off and give a bit of a clap to everyone.
There we go.
Okay. Thank you. That's brilliant.